It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
And when it comes to establishing your worldview, I was curious, what newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what one specifically, I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have...
Can demonic spirits attach themselves to inanimate objects? The answer is yes.
Welcome to Twat Waffle of the Week.
Welcome back to episode 2 of Twat Waffles of the Week. As I stated in episode 1, I was searching for a new topic to deep dive on. I believe I found one, and it should be ready about 3-4 weeks. That's all the news there is. So, there's not much that fancied my eye this week, so we will jump right in. Our first story got lost in the shuffle of changing towers. Either this man has hidden himself well, or there just isn't much about him online. Based on verbiage used, I'm going to hazard a guess that he is a nifty, i.e. Steven Anderson, or closely allied, which explains his vile use of language and hate. This is from the Friendly Atheist Hamid Mehta via the New Civil Rights Movement. Quote, Spokane, Washington Baptist preacher Daniel, I think that's how you pronounce it, Kutzar of the Assure Foundation last week told his congregation that gay people are reprobates who hate their life and kill themselves, far from the actual teachings of Christ, end quote. And one should note that Kutzar has doubled down, especially when he became aware he drew attention. The ludicrousness of religion shine bright in the following story. Quote, Sandra Yoakum, a professor of faith and culture at the University of Dayton, said if a priest said we, it would imply that the source of the grace of the baptism came from the community, whereas saying I would correctly assert that it's God doing this work of grace through the priest, end quote. As the New York Times notes, whether the faulty baptisms will spill over into other elements of their Catholic faith is unknown. Quote, Church leaders investigated and determined last month that Father Arango had incorrectly performed thousands of baptisms over more than 20 years, meaning those he had baptized in Phoenix and at his previous parishes in Brazil and San Diego were not properly baptized, end quote. Seriously? The church has better fucking things to worry about than if somebody was baptized correctly. Now, I'm well aware that for the devout believer that whether one is baptized or not is a spiritual issue, a theological issue. But this is a man-made doctrine. Okay, yes, Christ led by example, but he was baptized as an adult, not as an infant. I just find this totally whacked out that they're all concerned over I versus we. This next story is just sad, no matter how you look at it. And to be clear, I am not making light of any implications of this story that one may assume. Quote, Relatives of Tasha L. Hayefs, the Kansas City mother accused of killing her 6-year-old son this week, say she spent years working through drug addiction, depression, and severe trauma. Skipping ahead, Sherry Hayefs said her relationship with her daughter has mostly been over the phone as they live hundreds of miles apart. She said she has at some point seen her daughter display warning signs that something was wrong, though she does not believe she ever sought mental health counseling. And in the aftermath of Carvel's death, which was her son, she's begun to hear more stories that have raised alarm. She recently heard from her oldest grandson that Tasha Hayefs had shown up to a Kansas City relative's house. She heard her daughter was talking about a, quote, straight-up devil house, end quote, that was full of devil, and yelling at a relative about putting her and the children in a bad situation. Her son was standing there. She looked straight at him and said, "Like this devil?" Sherry Hayefs said, end quote. This story is still developing, so we'll see where it goes. I am curious as to the final charges to be filed, but so far, quote, Hayefs, 35, was charged this week with first-degree murder in the killing of her youngest son, 6-year-old Carvel Stevens. She was arraigned Thursday in Jackson County Circuit Court, and a judge has ordered that she undergo a mental health evaluation. The charges against Hayefs stemmed from the gruesome scene police officers were called to late Tuesday night in Kansas City's Noble and Gregory Ridge neighborhood on the southeast side. Police forced entry into Hayef's home to find the decapitated body of her son. Authorities allege she admitted to killing him in a bathtub, end quote. It's been a wee bit of slim pickings this week, but that's to be expected. I am not planning on covering Trump unless warranted. I'm not planning on covering QAnon bullshit unless warranted. So that's gonna knock news availability down. Y'all get enough of that bullshit from other sources. You don't need to hear it from me. I can only hear Trump's coming down without nothing happening so many times. To finish off, our YouTuber of the week is Dapper Dinosaur, who debunks primarily the scientific claims of creationists. And you can find him obviously on YouTube. So until next week, I bid you peace and stay safe.